All right. So, welcome back to the Street Angel podcast. And today we have a very awesome special guest from California, and is Amber, the Malibu medium. So, without any further delay, I might hand over to Amber. Just, yeah, tell everyone in Australia, and I'm sure people are listening across the world, a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so yeah, my name is Amber, and we were just talking about kind of our identification here, but I am a medium. I am a channel really to the divine realm. I am an Akashic Record reader and mentor. I love to teach other people how to activate their divine presence and also how to read the Akashic Records, as well as how to be their own divine channel.
Awesome. I love the fact that you're doing that both spectrum from that, teaching people as well as helping them, because it's always about, helping people do the work.
Mhm.
So we were thinking of a few topics today to talk about, and, to get the ball rolling was, you know, we always talk about being that everyday, channel. We have to live our lives 1 foot here, 1 foot on the Rainbow Bridge, some people call it. And
Mhm.
I share a lot of stories with my listeners around how spirits scare the living hell out of me sometimes. They just pop in to say hello. So, from your perspective, when was it when you first working with the channel, like knew that you were a channel and working with spirits, and how does it affect your everyday life? Because one of the things I want to do is demystify this conception that us, whatever label we put on it today, we're everyday people too. So,
Right, of course. Yeah. I I grew up having, I guess what you could say were mystical experiences, but I didn't talk about them very much, and I didn't ever at that time think I was like a divine channel. That was not in my vocabulary, but I had a lot of experiences where I felt a visitation by some sort of, I guess you would say, energetic presence. I believe now, looking back, I know the difference when maybe it was a spirit guide or an angel. I had a lot of spirits visit me too. And it wasn't until I was probably more in middle school to high school that I started to articulate to my family what was going on. Although they kind of knew I was struggling with sleeping at night by myself. My grandmother is also psychic, so she helped me, but she always said, I'm not a medium, but I'm psychic. So I can help you kind of protect yourself with white light. And I don't believe spirit is anything to be afraid of. But at the time, I just really wanted to have like a relief because they would come to me at nighttime when I was sleeping. So, long answer to your question. I mean, I had these experiences all through my life. And I even, into adulthood, every relationship or home that I lived in, I would have these experiences. And it really wasn't until I was way older, almost 40, that I had a near death experience where literally was hit over the head like, you are a channel, you are a healer. And that was when I embraced the ability, I guess you could say I had, and then really, you know, went into working with it in a purposeful way, in a way that not just embracing it, but to, work with others, to connect with their past loved ones and things like that. So I think also the term that I use is living as a divine channel was kind of like this philosophy that I was shown from spirit that we all can live like, but we don't really know that we're all divine channels.
mhm. Yeah.
I didn't, even though I had those experiences, I never had that awareness like I'm a divine channel, but we all are because we're divine beings. And so now, again, just in the past maybe 3 or 4 years, I see myself as a channel.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And I had a bookmark in my head then to come back to the sleeping part, because that's one
Mhm.
thing I still struggle with today. But I completely agree with you around the divine, living as a divine channel. It was when I was younger, I just knew there was, visits from spirit, visits from the angels. And you're right, it didn't enter our vocabulary what that meant until much further on in life. And it's something I completely agree with you today. I call myself like, well, Angelo means messenger from the divine. My whole life is just making sure people realize that you can access the divine every day, any day, because we are divine ourselves. So I completely agree with you there. But what do you think is the reason why we get visited at night? I mean, even to this day, I I do the
Like
whole
such a big topic.
it's like I do the whole I create a Faraday's cage around my room of a night so that people can't get in. I do the British mediumship because I was trained to work my natural mediumship in a British style where you have a gatekeeper. I mean, I think after about a month or two, my gatekeeper just handed in her resignation and said she's out because it was too much. But and I even get told by people, you got to close down, you got to close down. Though it's difficult when you are living that divine channel and you're so aligned with what you're doing every day. It's not as easy as turning a switch on, is it? Or off, on and off.
So, right, I agree. And I just was having a conversation with a friend about this yesterday, and it is something I think about often. I have to say that I believe spirit chose, I know this sounds maybe not the best, but, and I don't mean to sound egotistical about this, but I really truly believe that spirit chose me, that this is my calling, and that until I was going to embrace this, I'm not going to say gift, but ability, they were not going to leave me alone. So, because they didn't, and I literally would say, please leave me alone. Stop. I would do everything, like you said, protection of white light to not have these experiences because I was really afraid and it wouldn't stop. So it makes me believe that when we are meant to channel spirit, they're not going to stop visiting us. And that's just one kind of answer, because the other answer is, okay, now I embrace this, the work to help to connect to spirit, and yet they still come, and they also don't always respect boundaries. Like, I will get messages and those messages will keep repeating in a loop until I deliver them to someone. And so, even though I try to have boundaries and like maybe separate sometimes like my human life from what I do, they don't always listen. And so it makes me also believe that there's a sense of devotion and commitment that maybe we were predestined to do this, and like our soul or our higher self wants to deliver messages and wants to maybe live a little differently. Maybe we do live a little more open, because I do believe I was born very open. Like I just don't know how to explain it, but it was like maybe my third eye or my consciousness was very receptive and open. And I don't think that I can turn that off. I think it's like that, a cosmic makeup. Like, we are just a little more open, and yet anyone can, with tools and techniques, open themselves up. But I too have never been able to turn it off. I still have spirits show up in the middle of the night, like a shadow standing next to my bed. Spirits visit me a lot in my dreams. So, and it's not like I'm asking for that. So yeah, I don't know.
I completely agree with you. It's not like we're being, Australian term is we're not being up ourselves or but it's true. We were chosen. And sometimes I like to think of it that if you put, thousands of people in a football field, and everyone else is glowing orange, people like you will glow blue. I'll go blue. And that's because, and then spirit's able to see us. And you're right. It's so true. We were chosen to do this role. I had this, instance where I walked out of my ensuite one night many years ago, and there was this old woman sitting on this old 1970s lawn chair, just staring at me. And I screamed the place down, and she kept coming back every night until I sat with her, wrote down her message. And, I've never been able to play so, but I shared it to the world, and then she left. And it's so true. Once you get that loop, they won't stop. And even spirits who I feel passed over, loved ones, they have less boundaries than, say, angels or ascended masters, because they just come at you.
That's true. That is true. I have a beautiful soul I've connected with several times for a client, but she also happens to be a friend. So if I'm with her, of course, I'm getting messages, and I don't mind. I don't, mind that. But Yeah. Anyways, I don't know what that was.
But it's true that the eyesight, so yeah, it's also like, I'm getting tongue-tied here because I'm feeling ones come in wanting to talk all the time. So I'm like, back it up, guys. But it's what you said too. Like used to do a series called Bump in the Night. It was just a fun Facebook Live thing where we talked about, what's the questions you'd love to ask someone who sees spirit. And it reminded me of when you said just then, like, spirit isn't something to be scared of. There are so many people out there who they love to make money out of fear. I've had clients come to me and they say, I've got like this weird sex pest spirit. I've got like an energy spirit draining me here. And then they're so scared. They're like, we'll offer you money to clear it. And I'm like, you don't need to be cleared. There's nothing around you. It's your conscious. And I help them work through how they manifest it. But it was interesting and refreshing to hear someone like you say as well. Spirit isn't to be scared of. We can have some scary experiences. I mean, yeah, the peripheral vision, the shadows, but that's more about us just, I guess, learning to live with that experience, if that makes sense, as opposed to them being evil.
Absolutely. And now when I look back at the experiences when I was scared, now I can see I was just projecting like a program, right? That we were kind of raised to see scary movies, and there's just a lack of education. And I did a podcast about this, and I think I never released it, but it really truly is just a lack of education about like how natural it is to communicate with spirit, and also just like what is the afterlife and how common is it? Of course, there's going to be spirits around us. It's not that we're haunted. It's just that we're just one dimension, and there's like, these, it's almost, and I don't want to sound judgmental, but in a way, I do believe there's just so much education that we need about mediumship. And it does a disservice to people like us or for me, I felt like, I had no one that told me like anything other than my grandmother who, she was lovely and she did help me, but there was like no education other than, of course there was some books, but it just, now I think it's changing, but we're kind of taught to be afraid of spirit for sure.
Absolutely. My father sees spirit. He sees more so the angels, but he came from like a Greek Orthodox background, which is, you have the blue eye to protect you. So again, it was that superstitious side. And my whole life I was taught that if a spirit's there, it means something's bad. They'd put a picture up, I went to like Christian school and, pray to Jesus and he'll protect you. And I'm like, he's one of the ones knocking as Lord Sananda. But it's true. And it's definitely not sounding egotistical, because I completely agree with you that it's like the world needs that education. So it's kind of like, maybe that's a sign to release that episode, because the advent of, what's happened recently, people have changed jobs and people more and more are coming to online work. I am finding there's a lot of well-placed hearts, but maybe not well-placed intentions of like people popping up on social media claiming they're doing maybe the best. I'm trying to be polite here. It's like you see people say, spirit, if you want to protect yourself from spirits, do this witchcraft or do this, that, the other, spray this, wave that around. And I'm like, you realize that that's not doing anything unless your intentions are from your heart are pure, that you're saying, guys, I want to clear and I want to bring in some nice positive energy. It's you're so right. There needs to be education and even teach the teacher education as well. That's what I really feel out there. So I think you're on it.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, and also, people like maybe like us, or maybe someone who deep dives into spirituality will see like the truth about spirit. But then there's like the general collective, and that's kind of also what I'm speaking to. It's like I feel almost like the progression of the collective, that what trickles down to people who are not spiritually awakened, that's where you don't have the education, I would say, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. It makes perfect sense. It's like it's a huge topic and something that we could probably talk on for hours, but then people listening to this would fall asleep or, have a car accident, getting distracted. So, but with your living every day, has there been times when there have been comical moments? I mean, not to put you on the spot, but like just those comical moments where you thought to yourself, A, that's funny, or B, that's, it's just a sign that they're here and they're teaching you you got this. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I have. This house that I'm living in, I've lived here for 2 years. And when we first moved in, me and my wife did like a house tour. And that night, the previous owners who passed came to us individually in dreams. And they basically were like asking about our relationship because we're a gay couple. And they were like, we don't understand. Like, you guys are going to be living here. And she had her own experience with them. And so did I. And so we kind of found that funny. Like, they were passed, but they were just like, what's going on here? And then when we moved in, we literally got locked out of our bathroom. It for no reason, the bathroom door locked, and we felt like that was playful. I mean, some people could say like, oh, that's mean, that's not really nice, but that was, I thought, something playful. And the lights were flickering on and off like a discotheque. I mean, like crazy, on and off, on and off. We had to call the electricians, and they were like, there's no problem. And after that first night, in fact, now what happens when I get like a spirit around me, my head will spin. So I just got that. So I feel like they're here now, but they kind of just, I guess, fooled with us a little bit that first week. And then nothing has happened since.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I saw your whole aura just shift then.
Yeah.
It
I get a little spacey, a little lightheaded. And I mean, sometimes even they come into my body. It's because like I can actually go into a little bit of like a more blended state of channeling sometimes,
Yeah. Actually, that's an interesting thing to talk about. But before we get there, remind me of that, because I get distracted when spirit comes in.
Yeah.
So you get distracted. I get distracted. But it's true that when you're talking about where they were confused about your living arrangements, it's people say that, oh, why does grandma say this, or why does my brother say this, or that, is that, the other. And I always like to say to people, just because they're passed over to spirit doesn't mean that they're beautiful, benevolent, divine beings yet. They still have their quirks and personalities. And that's one of the things that helps us probably validate those spirits to the living, I'd say. And and that's why I always tell people, don't go to your grandma to ask her for questions around whether or not, she likes your partner. Because at the end of the day, if she didn't like your partner when you were living, it's not going to change quite so soon yet. Right. They're still going to have that personality.
Totally right.
Yeah. And I agree with you, that was just them being cheeky, with the lights and with the cupboards for that. So, but with that, when you're talking about an altered state, so are you meaning something like one of my mentors now, she's amazing. She's when she channels spirit, she goes into a full trance. And it's taken a huge toll on her body. Lots of health issues, lots of nerve issues. But it's like, is that what's similar to what you're referring to? It's kind of like what they call in Britain, like the trance mediums.
So what happened for me was when I first opened the Akashic Records, I went into a spontaneous trance state where this kind of, all I can say was it was like a group of Sanskrit kind of being, or they told me Sanskrit was their language. They were beings in the Akashic Records, and they spoke through me. My whole job shifted, and I was an Indian man. I had an Indian accent, and I could feel them inside of me. And this was just one of those crazy experiences. It was the first time I opened the Akashic Records. And so I actually allowed them to speak through me, and it became this book that I'm writing, because they just literally said, we are channeling to you the book of life. And at that time, I didn't even know the book of life was actually the Akashic Records. And so that was my first experience with like channeling. I don't know if it would be called trance channeling. It was just that they spoke through me. And then I actually asked them to stop using their voice. Like, it felt like a voice box inside of me. And I didn't like that. It was, to be honest, I felt uncomfortable. It was really weird for me. So they stopped, but I still allow them to channel through me. But what happens is just sometimes, like I've had a spirit in Italy. I was on vacation, and this one spirit who she was on the land, like she was, I guess what you could say, stuck there. She kept coming to me, and one night she actually came into my body. And so that was a little weird because I mean, I also didn't invite her in, but I feel like the ability to easily blend. And the times, the way that I like to do it now is like, sometimes if I'm doing a session, people will see their loved ones in my eyes. Or I will experience a little bit of their energy drop in, but it's not a full blend. It's not trance channeling. And I have no training in trance channeling. I would like to like deep dive into that. But what you just said about your mentor, that is something concerning to me, just because like the health issues and like what it would do to your body. So, I think what I would rather choose to do is kind of what I'm doing now, where I'm channeling energies and I'm fully in the flow of channeling, but I'm still somewhat blended with them, but I'm still myself and I'm still able to use my voice.
Yeah, I completely like 100% agree with you. It's something that, you know, when you're younger, when you're first getting into this, you get excited by that stuff. And it's funny how you say it's in the throat, because my thing was my head just would tip back and I would start talking using their voice. And it's funny because, you know, that's where they sometimes still come through. But I had a similar experience when I had a spirit called, it's like a collective spirit. There's a heap of them and they came together as one, and they called themselves Why, because humans always ask why. And I was like, well, that's very and it's true, like they'll come back and I'll talk and I'd lose moments of my life. And it's something where I actually agree with you. I just said, you can't do this anymore. And people said to me, oh, you know, that's wrong, that's scary, it's XYZ. And I'm like, well, no, that was my guides allowing that so I could learn to work with them. But I completely agree with you. It's something that, you know, I call it, maybe you just go into like an altered, semi-altered state. So you're still aware of who you are, you still let them talk. And it is beautiful when you feel the drops of them come through you. And when I was writing my Oracle deck, I could see the dragon claws and I was just typing away the messages. So, but still being me. It's
right, like semi-blended, like that's exactly what I like too. Absolutely. And I wouldn't say that I would never go into a trance channeled state, because I do find it a little fascinating still, but it's not going to be something, I don't think, that I'm like going to be calling in all the time.
Yeah. We're not going to see you being put in one of those boxes and then people sit around you. I mean, I've some people that have done that their whole lives, and bless their hearts, but they've ended up with Parkinson's. They've ended up with horrible ongoing things because they've allowed their body to just be just used 24/7, if that makes sense. But it's not something I'm super interested in it. Like, it's like a little kid. I'm like, it fascinates me, but I would never want to be full time. So no, it makes perfect sense. We're on the same page. So, you know, with the Akashic Records, it's something, I love the Akashic Records, and there are so many people out there doing them now. And I don't know if that's because I'm interested in them, so I see them, or just there are more people. You never know with that thing. Like when you buy a car, you know, you start noticing the same similar make. But the Akashic Records, I really love working in that space more so than psychic mediumship space. So, you know, for you, how do the Akashic Records appear for you in a nutshell? You know, for me, like I'll let you go first and then I'll say mine.
Okay. So when I was like maybe 16 or 17, I had this experience in the astral realm. Like when I would sleep, and I still have this, like I'm just a natural astral traveler, like I don't know if you call it astral projection, but I travel to other dimensions. And I had this experience where I was in what seemed to be the galaxies, just the stars around me, the black sky with the stars. And I was standing at a podium with this ancient book, and it was open. And I remember standing there, nothing was said to me. And I was also not even thinking. It was just like this pure experience of like awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And that was it. And I believe that to be the first experience with the Akashic Records in a more symbolic way, because of course they're not really a book. They're an imprint of memories and consciousness. But then when, like I said, I had a near-death experience and like right before I turned 40. And then I had it was like the Akashic Records was calling me. The Akashic Records, the name, the word would just come into my awareness. And at that time I was studying to be an energy healer. So after my NDE, I thought, oh, I'm a healer. Okay, my path is I'm going to be an energy healer. And I did go fully into that certification as a pranic energy healer, but there was something more. So they kept kind of coming into my awareness. And then that was when I used the Linda Howe's Akashic prayer. And I just thought, you know what, I'm just going to open the Akashic Records. I just read the prayer. And that was when the voice spoke through me. So it was a pretty profound experience, like that, the doorway into reading the Akashic Records. And then I have to say, I never thought about doing this for a business or in any ways. But what happened was my dad was struggling with his health at the time. And I had told just my wife and children and my parents about this experience I had channeling the Book of Life. And they were just blown away. And I was just like, I can't believe this is happening. And I remember my dad saying to me one day, I need your help. I don't know if I can go on like this because he has this condition that causes severe debilitating pain. And he said, can you speak to your people and ask them for advice? So that was the first time I opened the records with intention for someone else. And I just literally asked the question he said. He wasn't with me. He just said, ask them, tell them I can't go on and what should I do basically. And although they don't tell you what to do, it was just pages of channeled writing. And then because it helped him so much, he would refer me to other people and then I would write for them. And then it was just like, that's how it started. And so my training has been just with real life experience. I started to ask the guides I knew I was working with, okay, so what about this? Okay, so when people do this, what about this? So every session I would have, I would go back and I would talk to my guides and I would like reassess the situation and say like, what am I doing here? How is this happening? How am I getting the information? So I really feel like the Akashic Records itself has been my teacher. Mm-hmm. And and that's just like how I got started. And kind of from there, now I'm just, doing it.
Well, I love it because it's, there's so many similarities in when I first came across them or let's take a step back then. What I now realize was I was shown a great hall. And it was like this hall out in the Australian bush, and you were in bushland, then you open it up and there was this library and there was books everywhere. And I kept seeing a golden light and I was like, this is a bit weird. I'm doing something else, but I'm being shown this hall. And then, and over time, it was Archangel Uriel that kept saying to me, this is the great hall. And I've since learned that, everyone has their own hall or their book or however the records manifest for them. And I find that when I help people through their records, it's say like you'll have a cathedral with books, or someone else will have a temple with books, someone will have maybe even just a cave with beautiful paintings, and it's how it manifests. But it started by seeing, like, similar to you, those books, but they were books on bookshelves in this beautiful hall with this big table in the middle. And
wow. And it's like they choose to represent themselves in a way that we can understand on the human level. Right?
Absolutely. Because I kept saying to people, what is this great hall? What is this great hall? And there was a book that on the Akashic Records, and I can't for the life of me think who wrote it, but they actually mentioned in that below the Akashic Records, there is the hall. And that's where some people, how they explain it, you walk through the hall into the records. And I was like, that resonates a lot with me. Not saying that necessarily is the same for everyone else, but I kind of get whimsical when I talk about the Akashic Records because I love their energy. I love, they teach you as much as they teach the sitter or the client, I always feel as well.
Absolutely. And they do talk like really esoteric, I've had clients be like, can you say that in a different way? And I'm like, I'm channeling what they say. Sometimes they're very like, dear soul, like very, I don't know, just a little antiquated, I guess, or just like very ancient sounding.
Yep.
And other ways, they're just like really practical and just like, this is what you need to know. Like, I don't know if it's different energies, but
I agree with you. They're very much like whimsical, and they talk like the child must know this. I'm like, the person sitting in front of me is 60 years of age. You know what I mean? But I actually sometimes find that it's how I personally have to use someone else's Akashic guide. So say it could be Kuan Yin, or I've had some other Ascended Masters. And that's just to help me understand it, because I'm with you. Sometimes like, what the hell are they saying? And I feel like a simple person, because I keep going back for clarification, but using that guide, it just helps it digest it a little bit easier.
Yes.
Yeah, I do see some people's eyes completely glaze over. I'm like, I've lost them. So
yeah. I mean, and I've had people say, this is not for me. Will you just give me a psychic reading? So, it's different, but it's, you have to be ready to receive the expanded wisdom in the records. Like, in order as the sitter to receive that, that consciousness, they do have to be a little bit in an expanded state. Wouldn't you say? Like, because it's so deep and wide, and they're showing you the layers and levels to, let's say, a situation or a struggle. So like, if it's, I guess what I'm saying, in the future, if that happened to me, I would probably just ask the guides to maybe reframe the language. But I have also experienced several times where it might not be the best fit for a client to be ready to open their books, because some people don't know like the deepness to it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree completely. And it's something that I've actually, while I'm trying to do my work with my Oracle deck and, do my second deck, and, it's all around, what we were thinking about talking about, that divine timing. I actually have pushed aside mediumship or psychic mediumship readings just because I just had to help me with my load on my plate. So if I say to people, come and do the Great Hall, we can do some past life work, I feel like I attract a different form of clientele than I would with the psychic mediumship readings. And I completely agree with you that it's just, it's people, whatever stage they're on their path or whatever stage they're on their journey. Those who are a lot more open to it will come and do work in that Great Hall with their past lives. That's soul work. And some people just aren't ready yet. And I always say, and that's okay. Because even sometimes I can feel overwhelmed and be like, I don't want too many messages. I'm just,
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'm not like walking around living in this expanded state of consciousness all the time. Like, I'm so human. My kids are always like, Mom, you're yelling at everyone on the road. I mean, me driving, it's just yelling at people. Like, but I also then can have these like deep, big, expanded states of consciousness. It's like a little, I don't know, the paradox of the human experience. But it's an exercise. You exercise the muscle when you're able to keep expanding at the same time. Yeah,
I completely agree. And it's funny that we've come full circle around that idea of being a divine channel, but also being a human, because I find that if I'm up in that space with Archangel Uriel, if I'm channeling dragons and, I'm too up there, I'll walk outside and I'm on a 3-level townhouse. I'll fall down the stairs because my head's just there and I'm distracted by the fairy beings around me and things like that we have to, be human a lot of the time too. And I tell you what, I bet you I could give you a run for your money on my road rage. I mean, I don't know.
I really don't know. Sometimes I can look like angelic maybe, or I don't know, just like, oh, I'm like this blonde-haired woman, but no.
It's hilarious.
I go there.
Yeah, I have this like black SUV with black tinted windows. I always call it like, because it's Greek. My son and I just go off, and people say to me, how come you're very spiritual, but you're telling people like you're using vocabulary that would make a wharfie blush? And I'm like, I just don't understand why people can't drive.
I don't know. Maybe we were like Arcturian. I also feel like I'm Arcturian. Maybe we flew or we transported, and maybe that's why driving to me, I'm always like, how can you drive like this? Because I do feel like I'm from another planet.
Absolutely.
Like I don't quite understand numbers or like things that maybe other people can understand?
Yeah, my wife gets upset with me because I get prices wrong, I get phone numbers wrong, and I have number dyslexia.
You know
But
what? Wow. Wait, can we talk about that for a second?
yeah.
Because my wife, I mean, this is so mundane, but she was looking at my Instagram account. This probably sounds really horrible, but she was like, "Oh, wow, look at you. You're almost at 6,000 followers." I'm like, "What?" The way I read that says I need 200 more followers. Like I couldn't do the math, or I couldn't see. And I realized I don't ever know how old I am. I don't know how old my kids are half the time. It's like you called it number dyslexia.
Yep. Yeah.
Is that a thing? Because
I don't know if it's a thing, but I've coined it as a thing. And I feel it's like people like you and I who were in the Arcturian space previously, we're now humans, we halfway in between. It's like I just had a mild stroke then trying to remember how old I am, 38. See what I mean? Because it's like
30. I literally like I'm, you know, I have to do I have to like count when I was born. I have to be, it's really crazy. And my wife even will be like, it's our anniversary. And I'm like, how many years have we been married? I
find that words, we're articulate, we are channels, we are, sometimes when we just divinely channel those words, but numbers, like I said, I'll have a mild stroke trying to even, remember what year it is, what date it is. And I definitely feel it has something to do with the fact that we've got our star origins, that Arcturians. And like you said, we floated, we didn't need cars. It's I would watch those.
They showed me. They showed me like I'm curious to know what you know about it, because they showed me like what it actually looked like, I guess.
I saw it as, so I call it the Veer, Veer, and it's something that I was given a name of, and it's kind of like the angels, the Arcturians showed me this, where it was like a wormhole or a vortex where you thought of something, you went through that space, you were there. So if you, as an energetic being, if you thought you wanted to be, down the street, if I wanted to come, hang with you in, say, Santa Monica for a cup of coffee, I would just think it and I'd be there. And that's why it's so frustrating for us, because we're like, get out of the way.
Because we would just like transport basically. And so it was also, is it true for you that the way that they speak is telepathically, which is why I think that's how I get my information, even in mediumship, is mostly telepathically, because I think it's just like natural.
Yes, absolutely. When the Arcturians, and it's something that I've told some of my listeners on my podcast we'll get to eventually, but yeah, the Arcturians, it's all energetic telepathy. And that's, I can sometimes do the light language, I can sometimes write it, speak it, but it's 100%, as you say, it's telepathic. And it verges on just that sense of remembering, sense of knowing the information. But yeah, it's why I'm frustrated. I mean, I watch those X-Men movies and Magneto just pushes the cars the other way. And my wife says to me, I hope to God you never have those abilities in real life. Because
you'll be like...
Yeah. I mean, I used to drive, I've been to LA a few times, and driving through LA traffic, I'd have to just get out of the car because I'd have a meltdown.
Now you understand then, because it's pretty cray-cray.
It is. But I thought before we go down the Arcturian path, I might just pause it there for people that's listening, that, in the future, I'd love to have you back, Amber, and we could talk about, even more in depth, say that Arcturian space, where it's interesting how people go from, like yourself, your NDE, opening up that third eye and going through that, the journey of the records and then into the galactic space. It's a beautiful journey in itself that I think a lot of people out there would love to hear, because I get people coming to me all the time saying, who are these Palladians? Who are these Arcturians? Talk to us. Why have they come? So I think maybe we could do that in a bit. I know we're both busy people. So, but I also want to check, so how can people reach you if they want to reach out for a session with you or to follow you? Because I know that I do have some followers in the US that would be interested as well. So what's the best place for them to follow?
So you can go to my website, themalibumedium.com, or you could find me on Instagram. It's just Malibu Medium.
Mhm.
And, I have my link in bio with all my offerings. Yeah.
Awesome.
And I have, sessions, and I'm working on creating a course on how to read the Akashic Records. And I have like so many things I'm working on. I'm sure you understand. So that's not quite out yet, but I'm busy working on that, and my book, the channeled book that I started years ago. I need to get that out there. I'm trying to focus on that too.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely get that out, because I can see it. I can see it right in front of you, sitting in front of a group of people reading an excerpt. It sounds awesome. So I will end this here, just our recording, so that way people, connect with Amber through her Instagram page, or her website. And I'm assuming you have a cool little link tree thingy that they can, technical speak.
Yeah, right.
They can look at your service offerings. But and to also look out for your podcast too. So make sure they subscribe to yours. To your podcast.
I'm like, I should probably say that. Oh, wow. Thank you. Yeah. It's called Your Light is Fearless, and it's on Apple and Spotify and all that. Yeah.
Awesome. So thanks again for joining me on today's special episode of The Street Angel with Amber, the Malibu Medium. Thanks, guys.